couldn't maintain employees, and we couldn't maintain our business customers. Started working full time. I'm like, how am I going to fix this?
Welcome to Now That's It, Stories of MSP Success, where we dive into the journeys of some of the trailblazers in our industry to find out how they used their passion for technology to help turn managed services into the thriving sector it is today.
All right, Mr. James Thompson, President of ECS, welcome to the Now That's It podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh man, it's so great to have you out here in beautiful, sunny Arizona. So you told me you never wanted to get into IT.
Yes.
But you had a dad as a computer repair shop, right? Mm-hmm. And you couldn't avoid it, right? How did that play out?
My original passion, I feel like, I guess we could put it that way, or the first thing I wanted to try was I always wanted to be an architect. Mm-hmm. I was always interested in buildings and building things, and so that seemed like the right path for me, coming out of high school, obviously. And so originally I went to school. I graduated high school in 2007, so I went to college for architecture, and then transitioned to architectural engineering, seeing that I liked science and I liked math and I liked the numbers, so that aligned with me a little bit better. And then if anybody knows what happened in 2008, with the recession, building pretty much stopped. So during that time, I had already met my now wife, or so soon to be wife, and we knew we wanted to be young parents and, start a family pretty early on. And we were kind of at the point where we were engaged, and I was kind of looking at my opportunities as an architectural engineer and realized that there probably wasn't going to be a lot of opportunity to get a job right out of college and, to be able to support my family. And it just so happened to be around the same time, my dad, who had the computer repair shop, had lost an employee. And I was at a point in my life where I was like, hey, I could go search for a job that is recession-proof, mm-hmm. hopefully. And he also needed an employee that he could trust. So I knew he'd be a reliable employee. So I started working for him part-time at a computer repair shop. I transitioned my degree to MIS, and that's where she started.
Rest is history.
Yeah.
So how do you go from computer repair shop to managed service provider? Talk a little bit about sort of those early days. I remember you sharing with me sort of retaining employees, retaining customers, mm-hmm. was kind of hard in those early days. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I finally went to college for 7 years. So I graduated.
8 for me, so okay, yep. Mm-hmm.
But when I graduated finally with my degree in MIS, that was in 2014, and I came out, and we did have an employee at the time. And once I graduated, I actually asked my professor, one of my professors, the one that I trusted a lot, and I asked him, I was like, hey, my dad has this computer repair shop, and I think there could be something there. Or I could go get a real job and make pretty good money. And I just kind of consulted with him, and I really leaned into his advice. And he just simply looked at me and he said, how old are you? And I was like, at the time, if I can math correctly, I was 25. And I was like, I'm 25. And he goes, listen, you're still really young. You don't get a lot of opportunities to build something. So why don't you go take that? And so that's what got me started in the business full time.
Yeah.
So when I made that decision, our one employee that we had there, we actually had 2 employees. One had to leave for family. Mm-hmm. The other employee looked at me, and he was a good friend of mine, and he just said, hey man, he's from North Carolina. He's like, I want to move back. He's like, I'm going to go move back with my family, because I was hoping I had a chance to take over this company, but obviously you're going to step into that role. And it kind of hurt me a little bit, just because we were friends, and I was like, oh man, I was really hoping we could do something here. But it made me realize that the business model we had wasn't really set up for success in that manner, right? There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities the way that we were doing business. So we did have some business customers, and obviously we were having difficulty maintaining employees because we were just a computer repair shop and doing break fix work for some smaller companies. Right. And so we had 2 problems. We couldn't maintain employees, and we couldn't maintain our business customers, which that was a substantial part of our revenue when we did have them. So it was always a big hit. So that's when we discovered. I hired a part-time guy, and when I started working full time, I'm like, how am I going to fix this? We were trying to find a way to solve this challenge of making sure that we can maintain customers. And in college, I actually did one of my final programs was I used the work that I was doing with my dad as one of my internships, and I had to walk away with something tangible, or else I wouldn't get the credits for it. So I did a research study on backup and disaster recovery. So I had already spent a lot of time understanding that was a valuable resource for businesses, and it was more of a proactive approach to help companies stay in business, right? So I knew there was an idea of proactive IT support, at least in some manner. I had no idea what managed services were. Had no clue. So when I was talking to him about it, he was just like, hey, yeah, you should check out this company. I used to work for them. This is what they're doing. And so I did a lot of research, and everything just started lighting up, and it's like, yeah, this is where we need to be.
So that's awesome, James, but your dad's been running the business a completely different way for a long time. What was that convincing like?
Oh man, what was it like? He might kill me if I say this the way I saw it. Yeah, so obviously he was comfortable, right? And this is actually when I started to learn just the dynamic of a family-owned business, and really trying to put myself in his perspective and the age that he was at, and why he wasn't willing to take so many risks, right? He was in a better position than me. I was still really young, so I wanted to take a lot of risk. But it was a different business model. So when I explained it to him, obviously there was a lot of companies where they have a minimum, so you had to spend a minimum amount for so long. And from his perspective, that money wasn't guaranteed to come back in until you sold it, right? So so there was a lot of risk there, and at least to him and to me, but I was like, hey, I'm 25 years old, we have to do this. So I tried convincing him, and nothing would really work. So then I started to go other avenues of trying to convince him. So we actually, at that point, we'd hired a commercial level support engineer, and I was talking to him about it, and I was just like, hey, you need to go tell my dad that this is the way we need to go.
Nice.
And he was like, okay. So he went and told my dad, and then it was like, hey, we're all good. We're ready to go. There was one other big piece, actually, I should align with also. I was able to find, so at the time it was GFI Max, now by Incentral it's Insight. At the time they didn't have a minimum. So that was another huge piece to the buy-in, was making sure that we weren't going to be trapped in this huge contract.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I was fortunate to find that, and yeah, it was pretty awesome to get us started.
That's awesome. I am sure that, parents always want their children to be successful. And deep down, I want my kids when they get older to come up with their own ideas and be able to bring those to the table, and me support them. And I'm sure deep down your father wanted this to work. It's just he wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to sink ECS, right? And so for him to put that faith in you, and and I think a lot of it, right, from when I hear you tell this story, you obviously had buy-in from another staff member, part-time. But then you were able to convince other employees as well that this was able to go. So you showed this sort of sense of leadership right off the bat by sort of building a business case for it, right?
Sure.
And what that was going to look like.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about, it's great that you chose Enable, GFI Max back in the day, but talk a little bit about maybe those first customers, or that first customer. What was that sale like? What was that, how were you trying to convince them that this was the way? This was different than ECS had done it in the past.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and honestly, it was a big part of it too, was getting my dad convinced that this was going to work.
Yeah.
Because actually the first customer that we got, it's going to be 10 years coming up.
Wow.
That we got them to sign on full time, and they're still a customer, which is awesome. I know a lot of MSPs here have incredible stories where they've had customers for 20 years plus, and I think that's just amazing. But we're obviously proud about it. And but they were one of his first customers. And so it was kind of a big step for all of us, because it was like, my dad finally bought into the idea that we're going to do this, and me and him went and met with one of his first customers, and we were just, I mean, it was kind of nice that we already had that great relationship, because it kind of helped us on how we were going to sell it, and it was kind of interesting. We went through a lot of trial and error when it came to like pricing and figuring out how we were supposed to be doing this, but they were a great sport about it and very helpful, and I think just injected a lot of confidence for the rest of us that this is something that's going to work.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember listening to you talk about sort of the dynamic that you and your father had, and it was interesting because I think you mentioned that you actually created a support group, right, for family businesses. Talk a little bit about that.
You know, I always knew when I went to work for my dad, and one of the deciding factors was he needed someone that was reliable. So I always knew that there'd be some friction, but that we would both show up the next day, right? So we'd both show up and we'd continue to work and continue to grow the company and work together. And, you know, my sister works for the company as well, and it's a truly family-owned and operated company. And it was kind of interesting because I knew I had all these challenges, but I didn't really know what else was out there. So I was at a chamber event one time, and at the chamber event, I met basically, it was a president of a company where they were a family-owned and operated company as well. And you know, he was the president, and his brother worked for the company, and his dad worked for the company. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was like, they're in a similar situation that we're in. So more of us do exist. I had no idea, right? You're just so naive when you're stuck in your own little corner. But I asked him out to lunch, and thankfully he accepted that invite. And I had him at lunch, and I'm just like, hey man, you know, we have employees now, and I'm like, how do you do this? 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 And how do you manage your relationship with your dad? And I felt bad. I was kind of reeling him with questions, but it was a good conversation. And then towards the end of the lunch, he's like, you know, like, we've had similar experiences. He's like, I bet we could make a group of a lot of people that would have the same type of experience. And I was like, you're absolutely right. It was like, everyone talks about networking groups and tips groups and all these. And I'm like, I mean, basically it's like a business support group, right? So yeah, I mean, it basically started there. We met again, and we invited some other family-owned and operated business operators, and we created a group. It was called Legacy Dynamics, and it was where family members from family-owned and operated companies who are executives we would meet. It started off once a week. We eventually transitioned it back to twice a month, where we would meet, and we would just come up with topics about, I mean, it's not just dealing with your family members, but it's also dealing with the staff. And, you know, especially as a son, like, I had this horrible fear that everyone would think I'm the son just taking over dad's business. And it always bothered me a lot. So I worked really hard to maintain my reputation. And those were things that I could talk about and I could help people with, and people could help me with. And it was just kind of interesting because it turned out to be a very resourceful group where we're all able to kind of get different perspectives on how that we would manage those types of situations. And yeah, so that was fun.
Amazing, James. Really cool story. I love to hear about what you did back then. So let's talk a little bit about that growth spurt that you had. You went from 4 employees to about 23, right? While adding the managed services line of business. What really fueled that growth during that time period?
You know, one of the big things for us is, and one of the things that my dad did really well, was building incredible relationships with all of his staff. Obviously, our first managed client was one of his first customers, and we had that relationship where they bought in and they were willing to come and connect with us. And I think it's really spawned because of that, right? And just the amount of passion that we put into the way that we support our customers. It's a similar story to a lot of people I meet here, which is pretty incredible. Because, you know, when you're getting customers from a lot of our competition, you're like, no one out there cares about their customers. And that's the beautiful thing about the people that we find here at Enable, is that there's so many of us that have the same mentality, and it's just going above and beyond for those customers and treating their business like your own. You know, I have a phrase that I use all the time, and it's the rising tide raises all ships. So we do pretty much anything and everything we can to help our customers continue to be successful in whatever manner they mean to be. That paired with incredible people, that's got to be a pretty big push for why we continue to have success.
That's great, James.
Yeah.
So 2017 through 2019, big growth spurt. And about that time, you told Dad it was time to go. What was that like?
Yeah, you know, it was all in good faith. You know, kind of like we talked about, he was worried that it wasn't going to work, right? When we first started doing managed services, and you know, he was just worried about the success of it. At the time, it was Elkhorn Computer and transitioned to ECS. He was worried about the success of ECS and making sure that we had the business to help contribute to our family's success and his success as well, right? And it was around that time, you know, we were going through pretty substantial growth year over year, where I think he finally realized, like, okay, this is not a bad idea. This is a great idea. It's bringing value to us. It's bringing value to our customers. So maybe we'll let this go, you know. And it was also around that time, you know, we already had kids. My sisters, they were having my oldest sister, she already had her kids. My younger, still older sister than me, she was having her children. And I was like, hey, you know, they live out of town. You know, maybe it's not a bad idea for you to spend a little bit more time traveling and going and seeing your grandchildren. And that's really how we try to sell it. But the reality is, you know, long story short, the reason we got into this industry, or he got into this industry altogether, was because he, you know, back in '99, he actually had a pretty horrible accident where he fell off a barn roof, and this is where the tears come in. No, but you know, he's always been a hard worker and trying to do everything he can to support our family. And it's really inspiring, and so it's kind of built me the way that I am now because of the hard work and efforts that he's always put into everything. So when he had that accident, he actually wasn't able to walk for 9 months. He was in a hospital bed for 9 months, and actually he was in a wheelchair for another year after that. But they thought he was supposed to be dead or paralyzed for life. And he made an incredible recovery. And then when he came, while he was in a wheelchair, he went to school to get his MIS degree. And coming out of 2000, he couldn't use it because there's the tech bubble burst. And so he was forced to start Elkhorn Computer Service, and he continued to work so hard to contribute to our family and to help us, you know, be where we were. So it was almost a mission for me to give him an opportunity to relax. You know, just once and for all, don't work. Granted, that will never happen, because if you ever met the guy, he cannot stop working. But at least he has less responsibility. So that's that was a big part of the conversation. Is like, this is why I came here. This is why I came to work with you in this company, is so I can give you a chance to retire. And we were able to make it happen. So
that's so incredible, James. Such a good story, man. So talk a little bit about the computer repair business. How has that fared?
Yeah. You know, the computer repair business has been so good to us. It continued to grow while we continued to grow. So when we started offering managed services, the business from residential to commercial was about 75 residential, 25 business. And about middle of the year last year, we just decided to reevaluate what that looked like. And we realized that now residential services, even though it continued to grow, it was now 10% of our business versus 90% commercial. So it was around that time where we looked at it and we're like, hey, you know, it's only doing 10% of our revenue. We spend about 40% of our time managing this. Maybe it's a it's a good opportunity for us to look at focusing on the part of our business that's growing the most, and trying to give all of our energy towards, the people that are really trusting us to help them with their IT and help them grow and thrive their business. So July of 2024, we decided that we're going to stop residential services and computer repair. And like I said, we've been doing it for a long time, so we're trying to take care of those customers and make sure that they're getting taken care of appropriately. It was just the best move for us. And then, actually coming into 2025, we cut off all break fix and residential computer repair. So
that's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Like a lot of growing MSPs that we always talk to, you guys embraced EOS, Enterprise Operating System.
Mm-hmm.
You talk a little bit about that journey.
Oh yeah, where can we go with that? No, well, it actually started after 2020 and COVID. After we'd gone through a lot of growth and coming after COVID, we kind of realized that we had an issue, and it was horrible leadership, right? But I did read a lot of business books, and I read Traction before, and I didn't like it. Then I read a lot of other business books, and then I went back and I don't know why, I just reread that book, and I'm like, holy buckets. Like, they just took all these other books and they basically crammed it into a system that would allow us to run our business more efficiently, right? So we said, hey, let's take a look at it. We'll see if it's a good fit for us, and we'll see how it works. And so we self-integrated or self-implemented, however it goes. See, I don't even know what they officially call it because we did it ourselves. But it's been good, right? We've had our challenges. We found ways to make it work for us, and it's forced us to be accountable. It's forced us to continue to have our L10s, continue to have our weekly meetings, continue to have our check-ins, give us our scorecards to make sure that we're keeping each other accountable and making sure that we continue to do what we need to do.
That's good. Yeah. It's an interesting direction that MSPs have gone, and it's been around for a long time. And it's not just the MSP industry that's obviously it's taking the industry by storm, but a lot of the folks that are in the room this week are EOS shops as well. Some that are self-implemented, some that are sort of hybrid EOS, EOS Lite as a lot like to use. And there's some hardcore EOSers in here as well.
Yeah.
But everybody sort of says the same thing. It absolutely transformed the way we run the day-to-day operations. And so it's great to hear that worked for you as well.
Oh yeah.
So talk a little bit about what's next for ECS, James.
Obviously 2025 is a whole new chapter for us. So it's exciting. It's kind of like a breath of fresh air, right? This is the first time where we're not worrying about residential computer repair, and we're still in a transition, so there's going to be a transition as we get all of our customers to an appropriate plan for them, and we figure out what we're going to do with our current client base. But man, it's like, let's go to the moon.
Awesome.
We're kind of at that point now, and I'm so fortunate. I have an incredible team, right? I have Tyler, who's my operations manager. My sister still works for us, and she makes sure that all of our accounting and bookkeeping and everything's on track. And I have an incredible sales team that we just hired. We have a brand new, we made 4 major hires last year that really helped bolster our management, or at least our top end support teams. And so I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, hey, I can let them run stuff, and we can start looking at what's next for ECS. And there's still a lot to be figured out, but we just know that we need to grow for our team. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As an outsider, I think you have a lot to be proud of. Is there anything in particular that comes to your mind that you're the most proud of?
Oh man, I'm like the hardest person on myself. I don't, that's probably consistent with a lot of people here. So, I never feel like I've done enough. obviously outside of my family, obviously extremely proud about my family and everything we've been able to do there. I have a wonderful wife who's extremely supportive, so I'm happy about that. But from a business perspective in our industry, you know, I'm extremely proud and really, I think, lucky, right? I always say you make your own luck, but at the same time, I feel so lucky all the time. But I'm lucky to have the team that I have. We have an incredible culture. I feel like we're one of very few MSPs where we've had hardly anybody ever quit from our organization. And even now, the handful of people that have quit from our business, most of them have asked to come back.
Wow.
Which is incredible. You don't hear about that often. So we've been able to create a pretty awesome culture and a place where people can be excited about coming to work. And we've had the success that they've all been a part of that I feel like gives them what they're looking for, right? So I'm not saying all of that's my fault, but it's definitely exciting to be a part of it.
Awesome, man. So one last question I like to ask, James, and hopefully you're ready for it.
Yeah.
When did you know, now that's it?
Now that's it. Oh, man. Like I said, I'm always very critical of myself, so I always feel like I'm not done. We still need to figure it out.
Sure.
But I will say, I feel like one of the most valuable things that we've done and really a turning point for us in our organization, where I could say that's what set us in the right direction, and that was it, was post-COVID when we started Traction, and we did have a hard time with having the wrong people in our organization, and we fixed it. We got the wrong people out. We found a way to bring the right people in, and that was it. The bus just starts going on its own, and the business really starts to thrive on its own. And when you put a group of the right people in the right room, not only are they happy, but your customers are happy, families are happy. It's just really exciting to be able to have that experience and being able to figure it out, right? As business owners, we're always trying to troubleshoot what's wrong, and that was one thing it felt wrong, and it turns out it was wrong, and now that it's right, it's been incredible. And honestly, it wasn't easy. That was actually one of the hardest moves I ever had to make. Like, one of the things I had to do is I had to let go of a very important person in our organization, at least it seemed that way, but he was detrimental to our culture, and I was scared to let him go because he was friends with our top engineer, actually the first engineer that we hired for our MSP, who helped us build it. So they were friends, so I knew if I let him go that I would lose him, and that was a big piece of our business. And I basically had to jump off a bridge and just a leap of faith and say, we're going to do this for our culture. We're going to do this for the people in this business, and we're going to do this for our future growth. And it's been incredible ever since. And we did lose that engineer, and we have talked to him about coming back, because he even realized later that it was the other person. He was causing a lot of the stress that he had. He wasn't the one solving it. He was the one causing it. And, that was a pretty pivotal moment for us, if I could say that word.
That's great, James. James, I'm so excited to have gotten to know you, over the last month or so. Excited that you're here in Phoenix with us this week, and you're part of the business transformation sort of community now. I want to wish you and the ECS team the absolute best of luck. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and obviously thanks for everything that Enable does to help support us and give us the opportunity to continue to be incredible. So thank you guys.